Okay, gentlemen, we are recording. Okay, let's go and show you a tape measure. Now, right here, regular old tape measure. You notice it has a bazillion jillion lines on it. If you look at all those lines, you're going to get friggin' confused. So don't try to look at all the lines. We're just going to break this down piece by piece and go through it, all right? And at the end of here, about probably 20 minutes, you'll know how to read the tape measure, at least you're beginning to know how to read the tape measure. So first, if you notice, like every line that is a full inch, we have a full line that goes straight across, okay? These lines mean things. You notice they're all different sizes. So the size of the line will tell you what the measurement is. So if you have a line that goes clear across like this, or your biggest line that you have is going to be a full inch, okay? Now these lines on this side and these lines on this side, they're the same. All those are for is so you can measure something on this side, you know, line it up on this side, something you wanted to measure, or line it up on this side, something you wanted to measure. So right here we have 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches, 10 inches. I doubt there's a person in this whole class that doesn't get that much. That is like so easy for you to get. So now that you know that this line, that end, like if you want to measure exactly 7 inches, has to be exactly to this line right here, okay? Measure exactly 8 inches is exactly to that line. 9, 10, 11, same deal. But if you want to measure 7.5, it's going to be 7.5. You got to figure 7.5 is going to be halfway to 8, right? So what they do is they give you a little line in here that is halfway between 7 and 8. This guy right here. You notice this is your tallest line. You got one over here too. So this is going to be a half. And this is going to be a half. All right. So you got 7.5. You got 8.5. You got 9.5. It's the tallest line. All these lines are the tallest line. You got them on this side also. 7.5, 8.5, 9.5. So let's go to our whiteboard, and we'll get that much drawn out on the whiteboard, okay? So we're to come right here, and we'll make this 1 inch, okay? We'll make this 2 inches, okay? So we'll start here at 0 and go here at 1. We're going to go here at 2. Now, if you're reading a blueprint or something, you're going to have these little lines next to your number. So if you have, let's say you have 23, has 23 on a print or something, and they're saying that this is 23 from there to there. Well, 23 doesn't tell you anything. It could be 23 millimeters, 23 meters, 23 inches, 23 feet, 23 miles. You don't know what it means. 23 yards. So here in America, you're going to have either one little line like this. That one little line, you see a little line like that? That means it's 23 feet. If you have 2 little lines, that means it's 23 inches, okay? So these little lines are little. That don't mean they don't mean anything. That means the difference between 23 inches and 23 feet means a lot. And right there, 23 don't mean nothing. So those lines are important. So this is 0 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches. Now, we looked on the tape measure and we noticed we have our next biggest line. Let me adjust this up a little bit. There we go. Our next biggest line is going to be halfway between, okay? So halfway, going to be right there. And we're going to have another one over here. This is 1 inch, 2 inches. So halfway. So this is going to be 1/2. It's half the distance, okay? This is also going to be 1/2. All right? So now you got 0 to 1/2 to 1 inch to 1 inch and a half to 2, okay? Because this is 1 part and this is 1 part. This is 1/2 and this is 1/2. This is 1/2 and this is 1/2, okay? So you notice your tallest lines are going to be your whole numbers. 0 inches, 1 inches, 2 inches, goes on forever, however long your tape measure is. In this case, 25 feet. Which, by the way, if you're going to work in construction, 25 feet is just about the right size tape measure. You get 50 feet, it's too big, too bulky. You get anything shorter than that, and you're going to have it's a pain in the butt because you got to keep measuring and adding. So 25 feet is a good size tape measure. Anyway, back to this. So you see how you divided the 1 inches up into halves. That's all we're doing. The 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/2, 2 inches. So let's go back and let's look at our tape measure again. So if you look again, 7, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, 9, 9 1/2. Super easy, okay? Now, your next line down here, right down here, you see that little line right there? We got this as the longest line. This is the next tallest line. And then this is the next one. Thank you, Loza. So this line right here. So let's look at this for a second before we get too far to try to keep things simplified. If you notice, we have our tallest line, the next one, and our next one. And then we've got 2 after that. So these 2 are the same height, there and there. Okay. So, and then we've got these 2 right here. So let me show you something real quick. If we look at a tape measure, we can find that you only have ones, you have halves, okay? We went over that. We have ones, we have halves, we have fourths, we have sixteenths, I'm sorry, we have eighths, and we have sixteenths, okay? That's all you got. You don't have nothing else. Nothing else at all. So if somebody gives me an answer on a question on your test, it says, oh, the answer is 2/5. There ain't no freaking fifths on a tape measure. There are no thirds, there are no fifths, there are no sevenths, there's no ninths, okay? There's none of that. This is all you got. So you don't even have to remember the ones, because that's easy, okay? These 4 things, halves, quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. That is it, okay? 4 things. Now, I know you can remember 4 things. It's just we have to be able to decode the tape measure so you know what those four things are. But let's go back to our tape measure. We've already found our ones. We found our halves. So now let's go and take a look at the quarters. So if we look right here, there's our next smallest line. You know, these are ones, these are halves, okay? And then this is going to be a fourth. Now here comes the tricky part right here. This is where most people get confused. Because everybody knows how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you would look at this one, you would say, okay, that's 1/4 here. And you go, well, that's another fourth. The problem is this is actually 3/4. Is because what we're doing, remember we took this 1 inch, we divided it in half. We made a half. So now we're going to take this 1/2 inch, we're going to divide it in half right here, okay? That's halfway between. And then we're going to come over and divide it in half again right there. So we've taken this 1/2 inch here and we divided it in parts. So this is going to be 1/4. This will be 2/4. This will be 3/4. Okay? Whoop. Come on, autofocus. There you go. So you got 1/4, 2/4, which is the same as a half, and 3/4. All right? So now we know that we have 7 to 8. We got 7, 7.5, 8. And now we know we got 7, 7 1/4. Okay. 7 2/4, which is the same as a half. Okay. Because it's halfway. 7 3/4. Go over that real quick again. So the ones are going to be the long lines. Your next tallest line is going to be your halves. Your next shortest line is going to be your quarters. 7 1/4, 7 2/4, which is the same as 7 1/2. Okay. Now it's important to remember that, and I'll show you why here in a second. So we got 7 1/4, 7 1/2, 7 3/4. 4/4, 4/4 is 4. I mean, 4/4 is 1 because 4 into 4 is 1. Now, let me go to the board and I'll show you why we need to remember this. Okay, so we're going to take our halves up here. We're going to divide them again, okay, in half. So now we've got these divided in half. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be 1/4, okay? 1, 2, 2/4. 3, 3/4. 4, 4/4. Now, the reason you want to remember 1/2 and 2/4 are the same is if I ask you what is 1/2 plus 1/4. If you're in picking class, math class, you would have to find the common denominator and do all your stuff and add across the top. The thing is, if you just got to know halves, fourths, eighths, and sixteenths. So you can memorize this stuff. If you know that 1/2 is the same as 2/4, okay, this is easy. 3/4. 2/4 plus 3/4 is 3/4. I'm sorry, 2 plus 2/4 plus 1/4 is 3/4. So if you know this, if you got this memorized in your head, that 1/2 and 2/4 is the same thing, you don't even have to get out a pencil, a paper, a calculator, nothing. You've got it totally down. So if you notice, tallest line, your next tallest line is 1/2. Your next tallest line is as the smaller they get, the smaller parts are divided up into. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide these guys up. All right. So this will be, we'll divide this up in 1/2 of the fourths. And look, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 8 parts. So that means these are going to be 1/8. Every part of this is 1/8 of an inch, okay? So this will be, the first one is obviously going to be 1/8. Your next one, 1, 2, 2/8. Your next one, 3/8. Okay? Your next one going to be the same as 4/8. Your next one, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. 8 into 8 equals 1, so there you go. 6/8 is the same as 3/4. 4/8 is the same as 2/4, is the same as 1/2, because you can see it right here. 1/2 goes all the way to right there. 1/8 is 1, 2, 3, 4/8. Okay, because you're counting these spaces all the way to there where they stop. That's 4/8. So let's look on our tape measure real quick. And we'll see what it looks like on the tape measure. So here we are on our tape measure. We've got 1/8 right here. There's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. Okay? So those lines are pretty easy. Because the next one right here, you see there's another little line divided the 8. This is 1/8. There's another little line. We divide it in half one more time. And that's going to be the 16ths. All right? And that's it. You don't have to remember no more than that. So, you know this first one's 1/8. You can count it. And you come across, you don't count this one because they're too tiny. You only count this size line and bigger. So you got to count that one. You got to count that one, that one. Because this one and this one's the same size. So you would count 0, would actually be 7, 7 and 1/8. Then you got to count this one. It's bigger, 2/8. This is the same size, 3/8. This is bigger, 4/8. Okay. Remember, 4/8 is the same as 1/2. So you only, if you just come down, you count every line that is this tall or bigger, you'll be counting 8s. All right. 4ths the same way. You count every line. You don't count this one because it's smaller. That's a 4th. That's 2/4, which is 1/2, 3/4, and 1. So now, the next thing I want to show you is the smallest line. This little line, if it is the tiniest line on a tape measure, it's going to be a 16th. Some tape measures on the first inch or so might have it divided into 30 seconds, but if you usually don't use that. For general construction work, a 16th is going to be close enough. Granted, if you're getting machining or doing cabinets and stuff, you're going to get smaller. But generally, 16th, the smallest you're going to work with. It's close enough. So just know that anytime you see a tiny line on here, Like if I came in here and I said, okay, what's this? You told me 3/8. You should know that's automatically wrong because it's the smallest line. If it's the smallest line, it's always going to be a 16th. All right. So let's go back to our board real quick. Got a flies in here getting in my coffee. So we're going to come right here. We're going to divide these guys in half. Okay. Just divide that in half right there. In half, in half, in half. Now you can draw one of these for yourself. Like if you have the test on Thursday and you're like getting confused, just sit down and draw this out. Draw yourself halfway. That's 1/2. Draw yourself halfway again. These are 1/4. Okay. Draw it half again. It's going to be 1/8. Three eighths, 5/8, 7/8. Because remember, it's going to be 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and you just divide them in half again. And all of these are going to be 16ths. So like right over here, look, we got 1/16. You count this line because it's taller, 2/16. You count this line because we know it's a 16th, it's the smallest one, same size as that one. 3/16, 4/16, 5/16, 6/16, 7/16. This is going to be the same as 8/16. Good to get this memorized. 9/16, 10/16, 11/16, 12/16, 13/16, 14/16, 15/16, and 16/16. Woo! Out of 16ths. 16 into 16 is 1 inch. So there you go. You got 1/16, 2/16, 3, 4, all the way down. Again, it repeats itself. All you did is you took a half, you took your 1 inch, divided it in half, okay? And you got your halves. You divide it in half again, you get your quarters. You divide it in half again, and you get your 8ths. You divide that in half, and you get your 16ths. Boom. And so just remember, the tallest lines are 1s, the next tallest lines are halves, the next tallest ones are quarters, the next one is 8ths, and the tiniest ones are 16ths. So we're going to go to our tape measure real quick and see what it looks like on there. So as you can see, there's a bazillion lines on here, but if you take them one at a time and break them down, we know that these are halves, okay? That's a half, that's a half, that's a half. Everybody's pretty good at that. If we go right here, we know that's a quarter. So we've taken this whole thing and divided it up into 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be 1/4, 2 quarters, which is the same as a half, 3 quarters, and 1 or 7. So this would be 6 1/2. This would be 6 1/4. 7 1/2. 7 1/4. 7 3/4. Now we go to our smallest line, our next smallest line. There's going to be 8ths, all right? 7 1/8, 6 1/8, 9 1/8. So then we go 1/8, 2/8, same as a quarter. It's going to be 7 3/8, 7 4/8, which is same as a half, 7 5/8, 7 and 6/8, which is same as 3/4, 7 and 8/8, and 8/8. Now the smallest lines we already know are 16ths. There's 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16, 5/16. Okay, so these are just 16 little parts. There's a 1/16 of an inch right there. That part is worth. That's another 1/16 of it. All you did is divide this 1 inch up into 16 parts, and it'll use the smallest line. So you're gonna, let me go through this one time. This will be 7 and a 16th, 7 and an 1/8, 7 and a 2/16, 7 and a 1/4. Okay. 7 and, you look, if you count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16. All right. Now this is an 1/8 because of the next biggest line, so you can count them. 1, 2, 7 and 3/8. All right. There's another 16th. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/16. And this is 8/16 because we know 8/16 is the same as 1/2, same as 2/4, same as 4/8. So again, starting from 7, 7 and a 16th, 7 and an 1/8, 7 and 3/16, 7 and a 1/4. All right. So we have another 16th here, so that's going to be 7 and 5/16. We have it now. We know this is an 1/8. All right. So we know, look, there's 1. We got to count that one, 3/8. And we go to 4/8. So, and this is the 16th in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/16. And 8 is half of 16, so we know that's going to be 8/16, even without having to do all that counting. So anyway, that should get you started. And we'll do some practice questions to see who's even still here now.